Hey guys, Tyler Mahoney here with Truman Lake Fishing Intel. We are back for another edition of the Expert Roundtable Dinner for June 2021. I got an all-star crew around me. Some of our guys couldn't make it. There's some guys on vacation, and it's just a busy time of the year. But to my left over here, Richard Bowling from Richard Bowling's Guide Service, Dylan Stocking from Get Outdoors Guide Service, and Jeff Falkenberry, the Endless Season Guide Service, all expert fishermen on Truman Lake, and we're really excited to be chatting with you guys today because there's been a lot of exciting stuff going on the lake, a lot of exciting stories that we were just chatting about. There's some crazy boat behavior going on, but we had probably one of the busiest weekends we might see all summer with, I think there was 13 different tournaments that were officially listed on the Missouri Regatta website for this weekend, some of which were massive. You had the Phoenix BFL, which was over 200 boat field. Joe Bass had over 130 boats today. ACT, 53 boats yesterday. Nebraska BASS Nation had 60, 70 boats, I believe, potentially more. So there was 4 big ones this weekend. Add to that, Shawnee Bend was Shawnee Bend was closed until, I think, was it this morning or yesterday morning?
I think it was this morning.
Yeah. So that kind of forced everyone to go to the other ones and maybe contributed to some congestion. But we're going to chat with you guys today about what the latest is on the crappie, the bass, the catfish, the hybrids, the white bass, and give you a little bit of a projection on what to look forward to here throughout the month of June and getting into July whenever we come back to do this video again. So Jeff, we'll start with you. You've been chasing crappie all over. How's it been treating you here the last couple weeks?
Yeah, for the most part, good. Really spotty. It's been spotty for me. There's small areas where you can catch some good fish. They haven't been everywhere, but they're getting pretty summerish now. Where they're starting to get on structure and ball up a little bit more. You know, more than one fish or 2 fish on a tree. I've been fishing some over on the Tebow, and there's 100 or 200 fish on a tree, but a lot of them are 5 inches long. I mean, the ball of fish that's on those trees over there is amazing. And then been on the Grand, caught a few fish on the Grand. It hasn't been my best arm, and then a few fish on the Osage has been good. Seems like the fatter, better fish are coming from the Osage side. We had a pretty good shad kill from the really harsh winter, and especially on that Grand Arm, for whatever reason, it is super hard to find shad. Even for my catfish trips, I'm going to the Tebow and the Osage and lower end of the lake to catch bait the afternoon or the night before, because the bait in the upper Grand Arm is just not there. What is there is big shad. It's shallow. It's a little tough to catch, but so the few fatter fish coming off of the Osage, but. For the most part, like I said, they're getting pretty summery. Yeah. Getting on the structure, being able to pull up and hit a tree and catch 4 or 5 off of it. And the next one. Typical Truman Lake June bite. Yeah.
Well, the heat of the day is starting to get hot now. Dylan, you were out today, this afternoon. What were they doing this afternoon? What have you been seeing in the afternoons? You've been fishing a little later in the days, it seems like.
It seems like afternoon dive, they're really stuck to the timber and structure a lot more than in the mornings. The mornings they seem to be roaming a little bit more, and then once that sun gets up, 10:30, then they're getting stuck to the structure pretty good. Yeah.
Have you noticed? Is it any type of structure in particular, or are they kind of all kinds of structure, brush piles, timber,
about everything.
We were all talking about it this week, and it's like we've all sunk stuff in Truman Lake, and I don't think we'll all ever sink anything ever again.
I don't think anybody will. Everybody's gonna find it.
It's so amazing to troll around, on some of these spots that we've fished for years, and look, and you see mossback fish racks, or you see stake pallet beds, or you see round porcupine ball, or buckets with PVC. I mean, it's just one thing after another. You turn a trolling motor and like, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, and there's one.
I like those stake beds that are as big as this table, though.
Oh yeah,
I like those.
Yeah.
And what is a stake bed like? Is it? It's made out of what?
They take a pallet and they take slats or laths and they nail to it and upright,
Great.
So they're all upright.
Okay.
And then they put concrete blocks on it and they sink it down. So you never hang on anything except the pallet. You get that deep, but most of the time you can just get right on it.
Gotcha.
And like what he's talking about, it looks like I don't know, like a comb.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
a comb.
Okay,
You'll
gotcha.
see it on your graph, and then you'll see all the dots in the comb.
Okay.
And if they're sitting on top of that, that's when it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, a
They're
lot
on
of
top,
times
they're
they'll
eating.
sitting on top of it and you just throw a jig out there close
And
to them
pick
and
it
they'll
up.
hammer it.
Yeah, we've had some folks ask, what is a stake bed? You talk about that
Yeah,
in the
that's
fishing
it,
reports, and yeah.
Also, there's some out there where they drive them in when the lake gets real low.
Mhm.
You know, they'll take grade stakes out there and just drive them down in the mud real hard, post hole digger or whatever. There won't be no pallet. It'll just be a bunch of stakes in the mud.
Interesting.
Try to get a picture of one tomorrow.
That'd be cool. Speaking of being able to find everything, have you guys seen the Humminbird? How they're coming out finally with their mega imaging live? Have you
I've seen some of the videos.
What was your impression? Do you
I don't know.
have you
It
seen
didn't
them?
look real good to me.
I was gonna say I'm just asking because when I saw it, I'm like, oh man, Garmin LifeScope, and I haven't seen the Lowrance really yet, but I didn't think it was quite on par.
I don't think a lot of people have seen Lowrance. Richard's seen mine, and
It looks
I
pretty
really
good.
like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
I've seen the Humminbird. I watched several different videos where you can zoom that in more.
Mm.
You know, I haven't been in the boat with it, so you know I'm not sponsored by
Sure.
any graph, but it did not look that good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the YouTube comments on the video that I saw,
Yeah, I saw that.
were ripping it apart. They're like, "You finally came out with it, and this is it."
Yeah, you know, they should have been ahead of the game now because it was their turn. You know, they should
Yeah.
be something really good, which they widened it out.
Mm-hmm.
I understand, but it just don't look that good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I was just curious if you guys had seen it. It's not. So
I've seen it, and I've seen all the memes. Like, there's tons of memes
Yeah.
going around.
I was gonna buy one. The transducer itself is $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, I've got the graph already. It'll hook up to Gen 3 or newer. But man, if it's good, I'm gonna have one.
Mhm.
I'm not. I gotta get in the boat and see it work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, whatever.
Yeah, there's no. I mean, what you got right now, it wouldn't be. It would have to be like pretty stellar
yeah.
to change. You know what I mean? And that's me. Like, if it, I am sponsored by Lowrance, and you know, so I waited, and now what I've got, I like, and I've gotten used to it. And that's the same way that the
Yeah.
Humminbird guys will. But
Yeah.
if it's not going to be a step above, you know, what these guys got, then
Yeah.
Then why get it?
yeah.
So speaking of LiveScope, Richard, if because there are a lot of guys that have it. I mean, our good buddy Denny has it. He's still learning it. What quick little tips would you give folks that are trying to dial in the settings on Garmin LiveScope? I mean, I know a lot of it is personal preference.
My settings are. I run mine hot. I think Dylan runs his a little different. We all a little bit different. I know two of the better fishermen with it that chases crappie in different states. They run it hot like I do, and I just done it. I see the fish better. I run my TVG off, my noise gain off. I run my color gain up to around 80%, and I just shoot down 20 feet all the time. I never come up shallower or deeper. I leave it at 20, and I never shoot out more than 30 feet. And I don't zoom in any closer. I leave it there. The only thing I'll touch throughout the day is the gain, up and down if I'm in shallow water. So, pretty simple. When you see a fish on there, it looks like a ball of fire.
Yeah.
And I can tell you if that's a crappie and pretty much what kind of fish it is. You know, it's what you get used to. Dylan's the same way with his
Yeah.
settings. And, but them settings right there is pretty dead nuts.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So when you say you're running it hot, that's what you mean. It looks like a ball of fire. What do you?
Yeah, and I'll
A bright contrast.
Okay.
I'll send you a picture tomorrow and you can put it on your
Okay.
page.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because there are folks that ask about it and they're like, man, what are those guys doing? Because we
And
can't.
it crosses over well because
Yeah.
mine's not called gain
Yeah.
on Lowrance, it's contrast.
Yeah.
So I'm running my contrast at like 83%. I mean, I'm way up there, pretty hot. I do the same thing, 20 feet down, 30 feet out, same deal. The crappie, you can tell it's a crappie. A lot of times, you know, depending on the size of the crappie, but I mean, you can see the shape of his tail, his fins. On a big one, like when I know it's a good crappie, and I know you guys have seen it on a big crappie, but you can tell on their nose how it kind of kicks out a little. Their head comes down and their mouth kind of kicks out a little bit. It's got a little bubble lip. Then I know that's a big one. You know, obviously in the
When
size.
you start seeing the outline of them,
Yeah.
you better be catching it.
Yeah, where it looks like the stickers on the back window of guys' trucks. That's what it looks like on my screen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a crappie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's a good one.
Yeah.
And right now, a lot of these fish on these flats, it's in open water. You know, a lot of times a crappie will sit in the water like this or like this, but right now they're sitting straight up and down. And I tell you, you can pitch a jig out there at 20 feet, quarter-ounce jig, they're going to run and get it.
They see it coming. It's amazing how far they can see it, even in dirty water. You'll see your bait going down, and you'll be sitting like this. You see your bait going down, he'll go, whoa!
So when you initially see them on the screen, they're already sitting like that?
They're already looking for something.
Okay, so that when you see that, they are in a attack feed.
Yeah.
mode.
Now, if you see them when they're level or down, they're going to go to the bottom if they're facing down. Don't jack with them because they're not going to see your bait. They'll go to the bottom, you'll see them scoot on the bottom, and when they come up, game them.
Nail 'em.
That's when you get them.
Yep.
Interesting.
Or they'll be stuck to a tree,
Yep.
like this.
Yeah,
And you'll drop bait down right next to the tree, and you'll see them come across on the other side.
yeah. So for guys that aren't using this live technology, what would be your best recommendations for them right now on Truman? Is there a particular arm, or they're a little stacked heavier on the wood?
Same as we've all done for years and years and years in June. Get on the deep summer flats or bluffs, 10 to 12 foot down,
See how many trees you can fish
and
under.
hit them all.
Drop it down, slow raise it up.
And keep in mind a lot of current all day long. When you know you got a tree and the current's coming this way, then fish will be on the up current side.
Yeah, and I hadn't checked the dam. Are they still cranking?
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah. And as you progress further up lake, the current becomes less. Can you notice it as much? I guess it probably depends on what kind of structure you're
You
fishing.
can on them flats out there.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially on the pinch down stuff where the lake gets narrow. You talk like the upper Grand and stuff, you know, where it gets narrow, you can see it. 712.63
Okay.
is what it's at right now.
So we're
down 0.55 as of 6 o'clock. So.
Yeah, still 6.5 feet high. And gotcha. Well, in other crappie news, we have to offer some congratulations to Richard's son Hunter and his partner Darren Langford. They had a heck of a tournament here in the American Crappie Trail over the weekend. They finished second place, and they were right there. It was 0.3 something that they were just below first place. They grinded for 2 days. I think they were in seventh after day one.
7th place.
And got up to second and took home a pretty nice check. But the American Crappie Trail is pretty cool. We were all talking about this. They do a really nice job. They've got cameras rolling all over the place. They have boats that go out and film, and they actually will put cameras on the top 10 boaters going into day two. They'll interview the boaters while they're on the water. American Crappie Trail is on several TV networks, from what I understand. So that was a really cool, really interesting event. And if you're looking at getting into crappie fishing tournaments, that's a really, really cool deal. But it was a field of some incredibly stellar crappie fishermen, and really awesome that Hunter and Darren were able to pull it off. Hunter, when you see it, going back to being able to identify those fish, I know they had a moment on the water where they thought, "Oh my goodness!"
Oh yeah, they got the camera set up and everything.
They got it all staged right with the camera boat, and they're like, "Okay, drop on it." And they thought it was a giant, and it ended up it was a big old drum.
Even Darren was sitting there with the net because this one, I guess, it was sitting there looking just, and they do kind of look like a crappie. It was sitting out there by itself, and they seen it sitting there, and the camera boat got everything ready because they thought it was a big fish for their day. And boy, he pitched on it. Darren's got the net, and I think it's going to make the TV show.
Yeah. So that'll be pretty awesome to see.
Funny.
But no, just it's great crappie fishing right now. As we move into the summertime, you guys expect pretty much all the arms to be pretty good, but to be looking on those main lake flats and timber is kind of the ticket.
Yep.
Trees, cedar trees, hedge trees are probably the best.
Yeah. Now, Lower Lake Dam area, Steve Blake always talks about fishing brush piles down there.
A lot of brush piles down there.
And that seems to be more his thing. I know he dips trees up in the Little Tebow too, but
I've been in and out the Clear Creek and some of them brush piles over there and on the Tebow.
Yeah.
And there's fish on them.
Yeah.
You just got to weed through them right now. And it'll come a time where there'll be some bigger fish move in there. Right now, it's I was over there. I was taking 6 to 8 dozen minnows a day, and we were burning through them.
wow.
And them trees are loaded.
I'm talking loaded. Like,
Yeah.
it's like crappie be as big as this room around one cedar tree.
So when all those little fish are on one tree, is there keeper mixed in with them?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But he's got to beat them to it.
Yeah,
you drop it in there. It's something to see.
The other ones just Yeah, very
We've
good.
been fishing those crappie bombs, and we hook them in on that because it's a quarter ounce, sinks pretty fast, and it's been working really good for us. And they see that thing falling, man, and all them fish just go at it, go at it, go at it. It's whoever can get it 1st.
So if you aren't a live scope person and not able to see all that happening, you're probably catching 5, 6, 10 of them in a row, and you might be moving on, I would imagine, rather than trying to fight all those things. But so quality of fish is really a lot better on the Grand and Osage right now, you think? I mean,
Well, I mean, there's different areas.
Yeah.
You know, the area I've been fishing over there, there's a lot of little fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Overall, the quality's going to be better.
well, and when we talked with Chris, he made a note about that.
Yeah. He's talking about the black crappie, kind of the Smithville situation.
Yeah.
The black crappie on the Tebow armor. So predominant that, you know, there's so many of them 5-inch fish. And I can tell you from catching bait over there, I've been catching a lot of shad over there. I'll pull up on you can tell usually the shad from the crappie, but some of those really big shad will do like crappie and they'll all just sit there. And, you know, drive up and it'll be just a big ball out in 8-10 foot of water. And you throw on it and it might be big shad or it might be 5-inch crappie, but you'll have a net full of them.
Yeah. Bob Bates was telling me earlier this week that some of the hybrids they were catching down on the Pommy and the lower lake, big schools of them, cleaned them, and they had 3 to 5-inch crappie.
I'm sure.
in their
Really?
stomachs.
Yeah.
Yep. He said one of them had freaking 5 of them.
Oh,
So those wipers are going to town on 'em for sure.
they've been beating those things up down there, man.
Yeah.
I took my trip the other day. Richard and I had a group out. The couple, we've been doing it for years, and the guy I take, he's 84 and she's 79. It was hot, no air moving. So we'd fish a tree or two, and then we'd take a little boat ride, get some air moving, you know. And I took them on down to the dam and showed them around a little bit. They're from east side of the state. And I don't know how many boats was on that weir down there, and I don't know how many boats was waiting their turn. The boats would roll in and get on there, and they'd catch a bunch of fish, then they'd roll out, and another boat would roll in. Jeez Louise.
Well, it sounds like you've been pretty good there. KK Island area had been pretty good. I know it got beat up pretty good. I know Cody's been on some flats in the Pommy, and fish are just cruising through. Not necessarily big schooled up, just they're just moving through a lot. They're catching a lot of blue catfish mixed in on these live shad. And speaking of, Jeff, you've done a few catfish trips recently. What's the latest on catfish?
I'm fixing to go to chasing that for summertime eater bite, big numbers bite. I was on that here a couple weeks ago where we was, you know, catching 30 to 50 fish a day. But you would, you know, you might have a 20 pounder, but mostly just eaters. Here the last few days, everybody wants to catch a big one. And we've been able to go out and get at least 1 or 2 30-pound plus fish every time, but we're still just chasing side scans, setting up on small pods of fish. Usually those bigger fish aren't going to be in a crowd typically,
Right.
And so I've been setting up on 8, 10, 12 fish or an area where they're moving through. The water's falling and clearing up, which makes it a little rough because I like to catch those fish shallow, but you don't really catch them shallow when it gets clear like that. And so as bad as I hate to say it, a small rain would be really, really good. Not a big lake raiser, but you know, a good rain to kind of stain the water up a little bit.
So moving forward here over the summertime, I mean, the name of the game for catfish is going to be flats and ledges and
humps and points.
Okay.
These points, as they're running this water down here, some of the main lake points will get real good, and some of the main lake humps. That's why those guys are catching them in those hybrids. They're just out there on them flats. Humps chasing shad. There'll be hybrids, crappie, walleye, catfish, everything that eats a shad will be there.
Yeah. And Richard, you had a surprise bonus.
It was a surprise.
That is the largest walleye I've seen of anyone I know in my little circle. It was over 28 inches.
28 inches, a little over 8 pounds, Joe.
Wow. So, and that was a sheer accident, it sounds like.
It was worse than that. That fish should have never got caught.
Yeah.
Just a quick story. Had to go out front. No, she was in the back. She needed 2 fish to finish up. Her husband finished his limit up, so we're going to rotate him. So he got a couple of beverages of our choice. So he's got them in his hand. She lays her pole down, he lays his pole down. She laid it down. It's all tangled up. He goes back to get the beer and help her up. So that pole's laying here, my pole's laying here across it, and they got another one hanging out there. And I just nothing went right. But so I got a bite on mine, so I set the hook, but the fish was gone. So, and I just caught a drum. So he said, "We got a fish on this post." So he gets the line, he just starts pulling up like this because he can't get the pole because it's on top of or below the other one. So he's got this stuff going. I said, "Well, put your beard down and get a hold of the line." So he gets the line. He just hand pulls that fish up. It's down about 14, 16 feet. And it comes up. I can just barely see it in the water. I said, "That's a drum." So he just dropped the line again. So the fish goes back down. The walleye should have cut the line a minute ago.
Right.
So it goes back down, and I said, "Well, give it up here before it makes a mess." So he lays his beard down. He gets the pole, and he starts, he leaves the pole. He starts tying it up. And it comes up, and I see it's a huge walleye. Then I look like a bull in China. I'm shoving out of the way. I'm going to get my net, and my net's only this. It's a live well.
Yeah.
So he's still doing this, and it's up. And I said, "Reel that sucker in." So he drops the line, and the fish goes back down again.
Oh my!
So now he's got to untangle these two poles, and he's got the reel. And he's trying to reel this, but that's the one she had
Tangled up.
So he's, "What? I can't reel. I said, "What have I taught you over the last 4 or 5 years? Grab the line and pull it." So he grabs the line and pulls out like this, and then I have to get the line. Then he takes another big, and if we get it to the net, I get halfway in it. It's not very deep, and I'm cut to pieces. I shove it in there, and I go to put it in the boat, and out it goes again. So now it's back out there again. I said, "Pull it back." Anyway, this time I got it and popped it in the boat.
Oh my gosh!
And it got better even.
No.
So then Richard comes over, and we both got a load of crappie or live wells and some toads. And Richard said, "Hey, you guys hold up some of your big fish there, and I'll take a picture from my boat of you guys." And he's like, "All right." So me and the man wife I have, we stand up, we take a picture. He takes a picture of everything. He said, "I want to get a picture of her with that walleye." So they get the walleye out. She's sitting in the back seat on Richard's boat. And they get it out and they hand it to her. And her husband's got a hold of it too. And Richard's standing there getting ready to take a picture. And it flips. And it goes right next to the gunnel and lands on the gunnel. And for whatever reason, it's lively and it's mad.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it just laid there.
Oh.
And Richard gets over and gets his hand on it, scoops it back in the live well.
So we're not taking no picture.
We're not taking a picture until we get to the deal.
Yeah.
It was one flip. It flipped, she screams, it hit next to the gunnel on the back deck of the boat, and I was like, "Oh, it's gone." We're right there together. I'm like, "It's gone." And it just laid there. I was like, "Holy!"
It was out of the boat and right back in. That fish was committing suicide.
I was gonna say that if that's not a story of something that was meant to be, like you were meant to keep that fish.
Oh,
goodness!
He
gracious.
calls me. We have terrible phone signal over there on Osage for whatever reason. He calls me and we're trying to talk, and I call him back. He calls me back, and I call him back. He goes, "Dude, you ain't gonna believe it." He goes, "I got a story for you," but he said, "I'm gonna let them tell it because if I tell it, you'll think I'm lying."
He just sent a text earlier today. He said they're still talking about that walleye.
Yeah, I bet.
2 or 3 days ago.
It was amazing. It was giant.
Yeah.
Giant walleye.
Yeah, you're not gonna find bigger on Truman Lake.
I think he's having a replica. Didn't he say he's having a
Right,
replica?
they measured it, both sides. They made a good measurement. They had a tape around it, the girth, and good pictures of it. To make for his office.
I was like, "Dude, that's a wall hanger like that."
Yeah.
I would mount a walleye like that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Then I did tell him that walleye's terrible to eat, and I guess I could take it. That worked.
Yeah. Wow.
That was good.
Yeah, that is quite a story. Goodness gracious.
I wish it had been on film.
Yeah. That you, because you guys sitting here telling it, it's like that's so outrageous that it's hard to believe.
On
But-
10-pound line,
Monofilament.
and it's just laying there with a dead minnow. It's meant to be.
It was.
By the way, just random thought. I met a guy yesterday that was asking what kind of line you use for crappie.
I've been using slime line.
Okay.
Yep.
So, and that's a mono?
Mono, yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I just bought some new line. I like to play with the braided line when I'm jig fishing, pitching it way out. And I bought, I ain't going to be able to tell you the name of it. It's, I'll look and I'll let you know. But it is very small. But if you miss a fish and you do this with your pole up there, it makes a mess. But man, you're talking about some smooth stuff. Not Power Pro. I got to look. I didn't even know they made.
Like a P line?
It is P-line.
P-line's what I use.
Yeah, that's what I use too.
I mean, that stuff is small. But what happens though, it's so small when you tie your jig on, if you get a good crappie on, he flips his head, that the line's diameter of it will go through the eye of that hook. So you got to watch, or drop a super glue on. That's what I'll do in the tournament this weekend. But that stuff is smooth.
Yeah.
It's the smoothest stuff.
Yep.
I've found.
Micah Dawson called me the other day. Who's got Mad Fishing. He's got the button and he's got the graph cleaner, and they're getting into some line. He was asking me about that. So I have some new stuff to try before long.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of good things about is it K9?
K9.
I've never tried that.
I never have either. They called and asked me if I wanted to be it. I was like, I've never even used it.
Yeah.
Gary found last year before the Nationals, he found a slime line. I'd never heard of it. And he brought 2 big spools of it. And for a mono, that's about as good a mono as I've ever used.
Yeah.
I'm still rolling on my vicious mono. It's hard to beat that 10-pound vicious.
And that's 10-pound is kind of the go-to.
10-pound break, 10-pound mono.
That slime line's the stretchy stuff, ain't it?
There's not a lot. There's some, but not a lot. I mean, it's a good look. There's no memory to it. You leave it on your reel for 2 weeks and open that bell, let it go as smooth as it can be.
Is it high vis line?
I got a roll of each of it, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I've been using the high vis on my hook and sinker.
The high vis, I mean, if you're doing one of those bright yellow, that doesn't really matter a whole lot in Truman because it's so dirty,
You know,
right?
used to. I'm a big time line watcher. Was now then you don't even know what line you got on because you're watching your jig go down to them now.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
with the live scope when you pitch out with that braided, it's got all the microfibers. You can see that line.
Mm-hmm.
To the mono, you can't see the line as good.
Gotcha.
But you want something that'll fall smooth. You don't want it catch and fall, catch and fall because when you're trying to drop on a fish, you know, you want it to get down as quick as you
Right.
can. Some, you know, they're 10, 12 feet down, so you want it to get down there pretty fast.
Yeah.
So you don't want something that's going to be catching and a bunch of curly memory. And
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was at the BFL and a member of the website came up to me and was talking, and that's just randomly kind of came up, had that question, and with the BFL, big bass tournament here on Truman, over 200 boats, and interestingly, the weights were pretty abysmal for what a lot of people thought for that type of field, that there'd be some 20-pound stringers maybe, but the biggest stringer 5-fish limit was 16 and some change from a co-angler. And the boater side, it was only 14 and some change. I think it was just under 15.
That's cool. And when it be one out of the back of the boat.
Yep.
Or a bigger stringer.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
And, you know, there was the Joe Bass today, and it was a little different story. I mean, actually, not really a different story. Most guys were in that 10 to 13 pound range. And
wow.
The top 4, so John Bennett and Daryl Reach, who are long time, they win just about as much as anybody on Truman. They had 22 pounds today,
Nice.
a couple of 6-pounders. And second place was Jelinek and Rinkmeyer of 19. Third was 17, and fourth was 16. I mean, it dropped off in a hurry. And if I heard correctly, I think Daryl and John may have run pretty far up the Osage with the water level the way it is. I know there's a lot of siltation, and when it's up where it is now, you can kind of get up into some of those areas that you just can't get to at normal pools. So,
Yeah.
but a lot of people, fishing was pretty good earlier this week, and water temperature sounds like just kind of skyrocketed here over the last 5 days, and
Too fast.
mid to upper 80s, and bass fishing just got kind of tough. There was a little bit of a topwater bite earlier this week. I think some guys did fish topwater today during Joe Bass a lot during the day in the heat of the sun and caught some fish. But it sounds like most guys caught their fish flipping big worms and jigs, a little more out deeper versus
What I would have been doing, if you're not swimming a worm through a cedar top on a channel swing right now on Truman Lake, you're missing out. Because we've been crappie fishing a bunch of them cedar trees on the Tebow over there, and I missed flat wearing the bass out. I mean, tons of them.
Yeah.
We even caught them catfishing over
Yeah.
there.
And you're catching, it's not
Keepers.
Yeah.
I mean, good bass.
Yeah. Tournament type fish. Yeah. So, you know, we're going to obviously continue covering the bass just like everything else, but it definitely has been a little tougher on the old tournament field here the last several days. So Darren was out today. I think he had 12, 13 pounds, I want to say, right in there. And it was just tough. So
I would swim a lizard. Do people use those anymore, you wonder?
yeah.
Part of the spring.
Big fish today was almost 7 pounds. It was like
Good one.
6'9"
That's
something.
good after the spawn.
That's about as big as you're gonna get them.
Post spawn
Yeah,
fish.
yeah. So that's kind of the the skinny on the largemouth bass, and you know the a lot of guys, Darren included, as the summer heat goes on, they fish surprisingly shallow on Truman. where they're getting up in less than a couple of feet and getting that square bill on the bank and right at the water line and ripping it back, and that's how a lot of fish will be caught over the summertime. So, but anyway, the only other thing we really haven't touched on in a lot of detail is the whites and hybrids. We touched on how they're flat out catching them. The weir seems to be kind of the place to be, but you're going to battle some boats, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So, do they make a run very far up the arms during the summer, or do they kind of congregate down there at the lower end?
Oh, they run all the way up, cut through, and I mean we've caught them well up above there.
Yeah.
Your most of them I think are going to be down in main lake humps near deeper water.
Mm-hmm.
And cleaner water.
Yeah.
They like clean water.
Well, and they're catching them on live shad as well. So, and I know one of the things for folks that chase them a lot, the Jim Kudas, Jack Vanderpool, Bob Bates, you got pretty key with keeping those shad alive is having a round bait tank.
Yeah.
Pretty key.
You can capture them on small perch too.
Yeah.
If you've got a good pond where you can put those little 3-inch,
Yep.
3.5-inch sunfish, those are perfect and they stay alive well.
There's a little creek by this property our buddy just bought that when it floods gets super high and then it drops down. There's these little holes and loaded with them. And there's actually, I just caught almost a pound bass I had on the line lifting them up, trying to catch these little bluegills. And this tiny little hole, no bigger than this kitchen table. You don't. I guess they're coming up from the creek, but man,
But those work good for those hybrids too. The smaller ones.
Yeah.
Like normally you wouldn't use them for catfishing.
Yeah.
But the real small ones, they work really, really good.
Yeah.
And they stay alive really, really well.
Yeah, probably a lot better than shad, I would imagine. Speaking of shad, I know you said they're hard to find. I mean, what kind? Where can you find them? What kind of general areas? What should people?
The lower lake is better.
Okay.
And I'm just going around and graphing, and those bigger ones, the big 9-10 inches now are getting up shallow. So you'll be island across the flat, and you'll see them like jumping carp, just start jumping everywhere, And they're running in little 20, 30 fish bunches.
Yeah.
And but the smaller shad, and this year's hatch is starting to get up, decent size, and you'll see those flipping early in the morning.
Yeah.
But lower lake definitely is a
Yeah.
place to be.
Good deal.
This upper end, I don't know. It's gonna take a while, I think, for the bait to come back.
Yeah.
Here. It's as bad as I ever saw it.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered everything pretty good here for the month of June. We're short a couple of folks, but like I said, there's people on vacation, and Hunter was flat out beat after his week, and so we'll be back next month. We'll have a couple more guys with us, and but no, this is all great information. We appreciate these guys for being here. I forgot to mention at the beginning, but I want to thank Anglersport Marine for helping to make these videos possible. Nini's Italian Restaurant as well for helping out. So means a lot to have their support. And when you guys are looking for a boat, Anglersport is a great place to go for Phoenix, Low, Camus boats, and Nini's is right down in Warsaw. So be sure to stop in and grab a bite to eat with them.
One thing I want to touch on before we wrap up here is as we get to the middle of the year, we're in June now, we're in the 6th month, so we're halfway, but we're seeing a bunch on various pages or getting a bunch of messages of looking for a guide for next week, looking for a guide for this, looking for a guide. Now is the time to go ahead and start thinking about getting your trips planned for next year. I know that sounds rough trying to plan that far out, but guys like Richard, Dylan, and myself, we're usually booked that far out.
Yeah.
And so it's really good just to get the day locked in. One, you have a lot of time to tell the boss you're not going to be able to. And two, at least you have the day locked in. We can't guarantee the weather. We can't guarantee what the lake level is going to be. We can't guarantee this or that. But get the date locked in because, we hate it when you see that on all these pages. Oh, I need a guide for this. But, if we're so booked up, there's only 30 days in a month, And so, start thinking now that we're halfway through this year, start thinking about maybe getting your trips on the books for next year.
Yeah.
And-
Well, and I had a member reach out and ask me, about guides. And of course, I told them everyone on our website,
Sure.
but they were asking, we want someone that's fully licensed, insured, and all that.
Yep.
And I was like, anyone on Truman Lake Fishing Intel you're going to find is all meets those
Professionals.
requirements. And because, as we know, there's a lot of folks that come and go on the guide side of things that
Sure.
post a lot for a summer and then they're gone and not necessarily fully
Yeah.
insured and all that. So
I just want people to be thinking about it.
Yeah.
Go ahead and get, we have a lot of people, I know both of these two do, that say, hey, we want 6 trips next year. We want one this month, one this month, one this month, one this month.
Mhm.
Just lock them in.
Mhm.
It's tough to plan that far ahead, but it's also better to plan
Yeah.
that far ahead. Like I said, you can get off work and you've already got the day locked in.
Yep.
You don't have to worry about it.
Yep, that's exactly right. So, but with that, we'll plan on catching all you guys on the next one. Richard Bowling from Richard Bowling's Guide Service, Dylan Stocking, Get Outdoors Guide Service, and Jeff Falconberry, Endless Season Guide Service. They're all listed at Truman Lake Fishing and Tell. Biographies, contact information on how to get a hold of them, and get your trips booked, just like Jeff said. So, we appreciate you guys watching. If you have questions or topics in the future you want us to cover, be sure to write in, let us know, and we'll do our best to get to those. Thank you guys. We'll catch you on the next one.